What's up, prehistoric cave people of the modern millennia? This is the left coast caveman mentality, the middle ground between primitive being and pro-science biohacking culture. We bring you training methodologies and product reviews from a modern-day caveman perspective. We are on a quest for excellence in life, business, and mind. Our aim: help you optimize your now and realize your future potential. Join us in the cave of Crockett, California for the left coast caveman mentality.
What's up?
Dude, tell me that doesn't get you fired up.
It gets me kind of fired up. Oh yeah, I gotta figure out. Joking. How's this? Like the kill rate on this? Maybe I need to move my computer again because like the kill rate on this video filter is a little strong. You know, keeps cutting my head off. Oh well, whatever. What's up, brother? Left Coast Caveman number 53. Left Coast Caveman. Supreme being through modern hunting and gathering. Hunting and gathering, fitness modalities, nutritional modalities, and mentalities for the greater good of the world. The greater good of well-being. To make this world a more habitable place for us Homo sapiens. Yeah?
Yeah, we could use some of that.
So, today's mentality topic, we've been discussing on 50, 51, 52, a lot of, I'd say, recalibration type topics. What to get rid of, what to add to in order to better pursue your ideal in life, your ideal, or your vision of an ideal life, let's call it, your path, your vision. And all these topics that we've been kicking back and forth have seemed to be about, you know, what to do or what to take away from your path and all this kind of stuff. And so it got me thinking a lot about the great Jordan Peterson and his concept of getting your house in perfect order. So I pulled one of his Instagram quotes. It says, "Set your house in perfect order before you criticize the world. If you cannot bring peace to your household, how dare you try to rule a city?" And thinking about this like in terms of construction and how we've been talking about purging on the cast and getting rid of things in life, but why is that? For the sake of rebuilding or for the sake of making progress on your path. And it seems to carry across multiple trades or fields. Like if you're painting a new picture, you don't paint on an old canvas. You get out a new canvas, a fresh canvas. And even if you have to tear that page out and keep moving, it's still like a constant refreshing, if you will. Or in construction, unless I would say that you're probably going to add on to your house or something like that, you don't start with a pre-existing blueprint. You create a new blueprint. In order to do that, you have to level the ground and start over. And so I think that his concept of that, of getting your house in perfect order, is kind of multifaceted. It's both for the sake of construction, but also for the sake of, you know, like how can you add something valuable, or who are you to point judgment at somebody else until you get your house in perfect order? I think that's what he means by it. But also, you know, how can you make progress of any kind until you kind of clear the path for it? And that's kind of on point to what we've been talking about here lately, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. I mean, you think about when you do create a structure, if you don't terraform, level it out, and have some just preparation prior, you could potentially build upon a faulty foundation, or, you know, it might not be as strong. It'll be uneven. And so I think there's definitely a meditation of clarity, of cleansing, of starting from a fresh palette that's it really helps you build upon more so than if you were to just layer upon some fucked up scaffolding and unlevel terrain of the past. So that it does take some pre-work prior to whatever endeavor it might be to ensure that first off, like your foundation, it's a good source for whatever you build upon it.
Yeah, and so I mean that's kind of I think that's kind of on point to what we've been talking about in terms of a recapitulation of LCC 50, 51, and 52, and being that we've been on this micro program, if you will, of a little bit of influencer influenza and I would say inflammation and just dealing with what to put in your body, what to not put in your body, what to have around you, what to not have around you. These are the topics that we've been talking about. And it starts with, and what I've contemplated here is we've presupposed up until this point that somebody has an ideal vision of what they want to do with their life. We clearly know what we want to do with Left Coast Caveman. Supreme being, what is that? It's leveling up everybody in the world or creating a new state of existence that's more cognizant. We talked a lot in LCC 52 about mindfulness, whether it was the fitness modality, nutritional modality, or the mentality. It was all about being mindful of the influence that you have in the world, whether you are aware or not that you have an influence, being mindful of the movements that you're doing and whether they're contributing positively to your better fitness or not, or are you just blindly following what's put out there? Like all push-ups are always at 90 degrees. Like this blind following is what most people find themselves in. And so we presupposed up until this point, I would say, that people, maybe a lot of people don't have that clear vision of what they want to do with their life. And we talked a little bit about that, I think, in LCC number 50. About like, well, if you're just a line worker, a factory worker, and you're satisfied with working a factory life, which is fine for a lot of people, or a labor life, but something is missing or something's not right. How do you then shift? We talked a lot in I think 52 about shifting, making that dynamic shift from consumer to creator, and having that vision of what that is not as easy as we make it sound to be, or make it out to be. And so hence why the importance and the emphasis on this LCC mentality in the cave meditation of stripping away in order to get that clear vision. Because I was thinking about this, I was doing push-ups this week, or static hold push-ups, because I was still dealing with the whole elbow injury that I've been nursing for quite some time. And have you ever seen like a playground parking structure, or a playground structure that has like all those tiny little holes in it? I mean, maybe it's just, envision, if you will, like a plastic piece with just a bunch of tiny little holes in it. All across it. There's always time, so rainwater can flow through it and it doesn't get slippery for the children. And so have my hands on that, and I'm pushing my body up. And you ever look at like one of those, like when you were younger, have those illusions, like and you have to kind of cross your eyes a little bit or blur your eyes in order to kind of like it plays with your focus a little bit in order for you to then see the picture. Right. Well, I'm doing this push-up and my eyes, like, I can't stop my eyes from doing that. I can't stop my eyes from kind of like zooming in and zooming out. And I figured out that it's because all of those tiny little holes like gave my eyes too many points of focus. And so that it started like messing around, and I had to zero my focus in physically. And so the cave meditation on this is, again, going back to LCC number 50, where this micro program sort of started, in terms of talking about purging your activities, objects, and relationships in your life that aren't pertinent or aren't productive to your path. The cave meditation on that is really thinking about that, like what points of focus do you have, and are they distracting you? Are they enabling your ability to get that clear vision? And so keeping in mind, like, don't have emotional ties to specific objects, or we'll post it at leftcoastcaveman.com, like tools to help people assess what to get rid of. But understand, the cave meditation is, understand that is for you to clear your focus towards pursuing your path. And don't get anxiety or any kind of distraction or any kind of fear. Don't get involved with that by like saying, well, I don't know what that vision is yet. Know that as you clear the path, it will come to you. What's important will emerge. That illusion gets stripped away of the life that you've built up around you, full of illusions. Oh, that, that football's important, or, I mean, maybe football's fun, but it's not important. It's not really important. So stripping away all of those points of focus that aren't truly important or won't really help you achieve an ideal sense of satisfaction or achieving your potential in life, stripping all that stuff away will then help you sharpen that focus. So to rest easy in that fact that the more you implement this exercise, and we'll post it at leftcoastcaveman.com, purging exercise or purging worksheet, that will help you sharpen your focus.
Yeah, I mean, I love the saying, and I'm sure you've heard it before, is you can't see the forest through the trees, right? Sometimes you're too close to it, and it reminds me of that cool imagery you just posted about doing your push-ups in the jungle gym. Because, I spent a lot of time in jungle gyms with my child, and yeah, that's a really cool revelation right there. And the distractions are everywhere, and I think for those people that are having a hard time understanding or maybe setting that goal point or whatever it might be, a lot of times, like, it'll manifest in different ways. Like, physically speaking, it'll manifest in anxiety. It'll manifest in maybe you becoming really overweight and unhealthy, or you getting eczema or like skin disorders, or various, or feeling not having like your sexual energy. Like, these are all indicators that maybe you need to start pulling some things out of your life on the daily, right? Those are all signs that you're not where you need to be, and those are also distractions, right? When you're not feeling good, you're constantly fixated on that pain, on that annoyance, on that itch you can't scratch. So, back to Jordan Peterson, cleaning up your room before you try to save the world. Well, cleaning up your body, cleaning up that environment that you're exposing your body to on a daily basis, and you'll be able to hear that calling, the Joseph Campbell call to adventure much more clearly. But you got to take out those things because it obscures that signal.
Indeed. I have to keep reminding myself that I'm recording this as we go this time. So all this stuff that I'm moving around the screen, and all the, like, if I'm on mute and I say something, this pop-up comes up. So I have to remind myself of that. So I'll have to trim a little bit of that segment, I guess, if the visual aspect is important. But yeah, the hero's journey definitely applies with everything, it seems like. But most people focus, I think, instead on what to do or discovering what to do, that they forget about the what not to do's, and they rely too heavily on influence. And that's why I have a bone to pick with influencers and this whole influenza piece that I'm putting together, and micro program, if you will, of just understanding that, and like you poignantly put in 52, that we are influencers. We're fathers, we're citizens, we're brothers, sisters, cousins, and like whatever you are, like, people are watching, and empowering yourself with that, and knowing that you do have good ideas. You have good ideas to bring into the world. Everybody does. You're put on this earth. You've got unique experiences. You might bring a new angle to something. And we talked a little bit about this, about the shift from being a consumer to a creator. But you have to strip away all that consumerism in order to get there. And shifting into the fitness modality, it's you see that everywhere, and that's what the fitness and nutrition industry play on, are people's weakness in that regard, that everybody's so hungry for answers or looking for what to do next without really considering what not to do. That fitness modalities such as the Thigh Master, like we talked about, or the shake weight and these kind of things, like people are so gullible to that. These products that are put out there. The one that's really grabbing me right now is this Infinity hula hoop.
Oh, I have to look it up because we talked about it and I did not look it up last time. So I need to have some context here. Xfinity.
And it's called the Infinity hula hoop. And somebody showed it to me, but when I looked it up, it was like legit. Like hula hooping is actually something that is considered like a significant cardio and ab and hip exercise, and this is like a weighted hula hoop. But you think about the Thigh Master, the shake weight, Tony whatever's Gazelle, and these things, and these things are playing on people's inability to just keep it simple. I would think, and like get back to a primal state of being and strip away all of their, everybody's looking for a fix. And so that brought us to our fitness modality topic of this week, of junk food fitness. And I did a little bit of looking around. I found some good resources. Realbuzz.com, that's REALBUZZ. Realbuzz.com had some things to say, and you as a you're certified in this space, you might have some things to say about this. But I was really looking into, from a fitness perspective, and from a nutritional perspective, which we of course pivot into after this, would be what are some exercises that you should never do? What are some nutritional modalities that you should never implement? And a few things I found. So I'll run through them real quick, and then I'll get your expert opinion as the certified commentator on this subject. A standard versus behind the head lateral pull downs. They're saying that there's never a time where you need to do a lateral pull down, that you're harming your spine every time you do it. And what were you told? I mean, did you ever get up on a chin-up bar and say, like, oh, the ones behind the back are like the hardcore ones to do? Did you ever do those?
I've never done them on the chin-up bar, but I've definitely done them with the pull down, the cable pull down. And you can do both of them and you'll feel it. Like there is some shoulder, especially in older adults, there's some shoulder impingement going on. It doesn't feel good. And also you're apt to pull down and then also flex your C-spine, which is not good. Don't do that. That's just putting more pressure on the little discs in between. Anytime, that's a good, just as a heuristic in general, anytime you're lifting weight or heavy load, you generally don't want to do it with your discs in an overly flexed position. You want to try to keep as neutral as possible, but also bracing down with all of your your core muscles, your obliques, all of those all together. You want to imagine it this way. This is a really good analogy. Whenever you're doing a squat, for instance, imagine you're going underwater as you go down. So you got your squat up here and you go brace, and then you go down, and then as you're coming back up, imagine coming back, you hit the bottom of the pool and you're trying to come back up and releasing that oxygen to make yourself more buoyant. You blow out, right? And so that's a good thing, to just kind of visualize. But yeah, the behind the neck is absolutely terrible. Don't do that.
Good to know. Well, while you're on the topic of squat, it said partial squats should never do. A lot of the times people doing them incorrectly, but that a full range squat is what you ought to do. Any comments on that?
I wouldn't understand why anybody would want to do a partial squat in general. Now, I'm not saying don't do it. I've never come across anything that says don't do it. And I know some people will actually use a chair or a box as a cue for form. And a lot of times that will get you to a point that's not quite as low as maybe you want to go. But once again, back to, everybody's body types, the way our hips are different. So there is no right way to place your legs, and it's different for everyone based off your hip morphology and such. Okay, so it's going to be different based off of that. But in terms of doing a partial, I don't quite see a benefit to it. But I wouldn't say that's something you should not. Maybe there's some reason behind it. I'm not privy to it.
Okay. I think they were just talking about full range of motion and targeting imbalance of your. I could read the article real quick. Well, no, I can't because it's got the recording my screen. I could record from Zoom. That would have been a better idea. I was trying to save myself a step.
Yeah, you're also missing, to the point of like full range of motion, you're missing like the lengthening of the muscle, which you do want. You want that overall lengthening as much as possible to work the muscle through that full range, because if you don't, you'll eventually, like, one, you can start to develop compensations. Yeah, I mean, anytime you can go forward, I mean, that's kind of just a basic rule, is full range of motion is usually key, but that full range of motion might be different for everyone. So did you come to the exercise warmed up? I mean, it can be as like limited as that. Did you come to the exercise warmed up? Did you foam roll? Are you coming to the exercise really sore and stiff from before? So there's a lot of different things. Like, I know that lifting heavily after like a 5 to 10 mile run the day before is not in my best interest, and I try not to do that. That's just, I don't know too much science behind it, but I think it makes a lot of sense just based off my own anecdotal research, and as well as before I do a long 5 to 10 mile run, generally the day before I do yoga, so that my body is really lengthened, and so just enable like a really strong, good full range of motion spread as my legs go.
Very good. Well, see, these are ones that are saying, so we're talking a little bit about like, if you're going to do the exercise, how to do them well. So a standard versus a behind the head lateral pull down, a full range of motion squat versus a partial. There's more like that, like a standard. We talked about this last week, but a standard pull up versus the kipping pull up. It too agrees that it's this realbuzz.com, and it references all kinds of different articles or experts or Boston health fitness instructors or something like this, or educators, that the kipping pull up is really overcompensating in poor form, and it's very bad on your shoulders. There's dynamic stretch over ballistic stretch. It was saying that ballistic stretch should never be done. It over stretches, and kind of the bouncing can lead to some injury there. But then it says plank over crunches, that crunches are really actually poor form and not good for you, and that you should never do crunches. You should do planks instead. I found that to be interesting. But then there was a couple that it didn't offer. I don't think it offered replacements to do. It just said to never do. One of them was a rebound box jump. It says that the rebound box jumping, and you see a lot of people doing this, and this was kind of a trending thing to see online for some time, but it says it's the risk of an Achilles injury is like so high that it's almost just a stupid thing to ever try. And that the straight leg deadlift, again, it's that unless your form is absolutely impeccable, that the risk of injury to the lower back is not worth ever trying that exercise. But those were the ones that I found that, in terms of junk food fitness, I think that gimmicky kind of health or gimmicky fitness equipment is always worth a shot. But I've always been fascinated in, like, is there moves that you should never do? And this common culprits, like every time I even see the kipping pull up, I think, why on earth does that even make sense? And deadlifts always felt like they were ergonomically incorrect from every way that I've been taught to properly lift objects. I was surprised by crunches. I thought crunches have some kind of a benefit. So, verdict out on that one. The behind the head.
Can I weigh in on a few of those? Because I got a bunch to say on that stuff.
Go for it.
Okay, all right, good. So the kipping one, it looks fucking ridiculous. But okay, if I had to play devil's advocate, I've never been to a CrossFit box before. I've heard a lot of great stuff about it, but I mean, I will slightly disagree with the kip. It does look like it's very rough on your joints, but I guess if you were trying to maybe move to being able to do like a muscle up, that might be a good way to train, especially because I'm not even certain I can do a muscle up. I've tried on big bars, and I mean, I didn't have the grip, but so that might be a good way to kind of train it initially, kind of like you see, like Arnold, like a lot of people try to get that extra rep. They might, use some core form to get the, get the curl up or whatnot. I mean, has its time and place. Don't do it all the time, but I guess maybe to get the extra one, it might be permissible. So I guess I would say if you're trying to like work to doing a muscle up, I could see where the kip might come in initially as you're trying to gain that strength and like that movement pattern, the neural connection in your brain. But Not something I'm doing, for sure not. Looks like it's just havoc on your elbow joints, your shoulder joints. When it comes to the crunch, so I've actually been paying a lot of attention to that lately because I've been doing this protocol where I'm doing like 100 reps every day, just seeing what it could do. Because I don't ever focus on my abs. And it's like, well, that's why I don't have that. Like I have abs, but not really. It's like, well, let's try something. Let's just do something new and do 100 reps a day and just see what happens. And so I've been thinking a lot about crunches. And I think the big reason with crunches, and we talked about earlier, it's about your C-spine, right? When you're doing a crunch, a lot of times you're doing like you're kind of crunching down, making yourself have a double chin. So you can imagine when you're doing a crunch, or if you're doing like a sit-up, trying to keep like your upper body almost like a plank in itself. So you're keeping that neutral spine as you're going up. And that also makes it much harder to do. So I think it's just like, if you're gonna do a crunch, it's not necessarily bad. It's just like, try to keep your upper body in form, and it'll be more taxing to do it that way. I've been playing around with all sorts of different ab exercises lately. I mean, I think there's always going to be some degree of risk if you're just not doing it right and you're putting a lot of pressure on your C-spine. So that's that one. And then lastly, what was that last one you mentioned? Deadlifts. Okay, deadlifts. Okay, absolutely. It's probably one of the most complicated movement patterns, like multi-jointed movements, like. So you mentioned the RDL, which is Romanian deadlift, which is one where you want to keep almost your legs straight, just a slight bend in the knees, and you're bending down, and it feels like you're using the majority of your lower back. Well, you pretty much are. It's not a wrong thing to do, but like you have to make sure that you're really bracing and that your form is impeccable to protect your spine from having that unnatural curvature, which can, especially if you're loading up heavy weight. So you want to start that one. You want to definitely build up to weight tolerance on that one, but also making sure, using your phone, tape yourself, look at it, film yourself doing it to see, and you'll be able to identify rather quickly, the issues. And what I love about the RDL is you get a really great stretch through your hamstrings. And it's kind of similar to like a Jefferson curl, which you go below.
What's an RDL?
It's a Romanian deadlift. And it's the deadlift where you keep your legs straight. You don't have any bend. Whereas other deadlifts, you'll actually, it's almost like a hybrid between a squat and a deadlift, where you're going to bend your knees a little bit, get down low, and then drive up.
So you're suggesting to do the one that they're saying not to do, or they're saying that you have to be impeccable with your form in order to do it. This is going to kill us at 8 minutes and 30 seconds, so we'll have to stop it and revisit and go at it again. So you got 8 minutes to. And I'm going to yield to you on the cave implementation of this junk food fitness. Are there any of these not to do? And do you recommend any piece of equipment to never use? Is there junk food fitness that should never be in the Left Coast Caveman's repertoire?
So it's hard for me to pull a don't ever do, because there's always maybe. Not always, but there can be extenuating circumstances where you might want to. But if I had to give out like a public service announcement to anybody that's new to fitness or a continued fitness type person that's working on, fortifying the structure, stay away from machines. I think that's a really great one. Now, machines have its time and place, right? For instance, maybe you're a bodybuilder. There might be some reasons to use that because you're in the gym so much and you want to mix it up, and you can really isolate certain areas. Like, oh man, if I'm going to win Mr. Olympia, I really need to have my biceps brachii just pumped up more so. That's lacking or whatnot. That has its place, and that's not for most of us, right? If you're injured and you're very limited in your mobility or you're rehabbing, there could be a time and place for certain machines. But I think for the general public, if you're in relatively good health, or even if you're just like starting out, I would recommend staying away from those things, because it's not going to help you out with anything. In fact, it could train you to have poor form. It's like, what is the benefit of doing a Smith machine squat as opposed to a regular squat? There is no benefit. I would say there's never, outside of what I just outlined, there's no benefit to using a machine. In fact, you're robbing yourself of having to dynamically stabilize the load. You're robbing yourself of learning and training yourself, your neuromuscular connections to handle the load without assistance. And we all have busy lives, and it's like you want to get the best bang out of your buck when you're at the gym. And I just don't see a time and place for any of those Nautilus machines. And they look cool, and it's almost like, imagine a supermarket. You go in the supermarket, we all know like the maxim is shop the perimeter, skip the middle, right? The middle's full of bullshit. Well, the same thing's with like most gyms. Okay, most gyms are full of all these really sexy looking machines. Skip those things. It's all bullshit. It's fluff. Okay, I would love a gym that just had just free weights, squat bars, kettlebells, some sleds, that kind of stuff, right? I mean, medicine balls. I mean, but for whatever reason, gyms have to include that fitness junk food. They all do it for whatever reason. I've never been. I mean, I'm sure they're out there, but it's like conventional gyms I've been to, 24-hour Bali's. Even I used to go to one down here in Martinez that was like more so construction worker oriented, and they still had a bunch of bullshit machines, and they're just taking up prime real estate that I could like anybody. There's always too many people trying to get the squat machines, but let me tell you, there's not enough people trying to get the fucking leg spreader machine that the only women go on. So that would be if I had to identify things not to use. Fuck machines, don't use those things.
I'm surprised we've neglected. Now I've been on this gum for like way too long though. I kind of forgot about it. So
are you buzzed out?
Maybe a little.
Wait till you stand up, man. That's what's like, whoa, what like
I'm primed to the whole nicotine thing, but I'm good.
I use it before meetings. Like, I mean, we could talk about it later, but man, I had one of the best meetings ever, and I stacked it correctly with supplements. Like, I was fucking on point, sharp, like in negotiations, and it was a thing of beauty. And that nicotine gum, that's super helpful.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'll jot that down on our list of topics and micro programs. Maybe on the micro program of cognitive function.
Oh yeah,
I will put that down.
Imagine this, man. Like, I had zero anxiety. I had zero butterflies in this meeting. Like, it was just owned the whole, and I've never had that before. And I'm taking notes on what my stack was for that day, and obviously on a background of good diet, good exercise, good sleep. Those are the keys, right? Those you don't supplement. Those are the majority. But man, with that magnesium supplement I'm taking, I took some alpha GPC, had some of that gum prior to the meeting, had some ashwagandha. I mean, dude, I've never had a meeting like that before. I mean, I owned it.
Well, and it sounds like a lot, but really, then that's what our aim is here on Left Coast Caveman, Supreme Being through modern hunting and gathering, is to make these things more accessible and practical for people. It's really not that hard when you have a rubric through which you can sort of keep track of these things. And I lose sight of it sometimes. Like when you said magnesium, I was thinking, whoa, I've been waking up a lot at night. That I let that one slip through the cracks. So developing kind of these micro programs is for that. It's like addressing ailments in a way that is more holistic, but it's also practical and accessible. Like people don't want to spend a lot of money on these programs, and all this stuff is available for hunting and gathering locally, and it helps. And so getting this into the hands of people who are in corporate America, who are busy, people who are parents, people who battle anxiety, people who battle sleep, or you name it, sexual desire, these things. It's like we have micro programs. We will have micro programs for all of it at leftcoastcaveman.com, because I've found this stuff to be extremely helpful, and these little tidbits that we pick up along the way that help your performance. I mean, it only leads to more satisfaction in life when you find yourself crushing it on your path. And we've already talked about clearing out ways for the path, what not to do. And so the last piece is really this nutritional modality of, are there things that you absolutely, on the Left Coast Caveman way of life, should never put into your body? And I was digging around in Healthline, and some of the common culprits come up. In terms of, we were talking specifically on the micro program that we've come off of dealing with inflammation, and the culprits are usual: gluten, refined grains, snack foods, highly inflammatory oils, high fructose corn syrup, fried foods that are fried in inflammatory oils, white breads, pastries. All of these things kind of are common culprits, I would say, of inflammation. But one thing I wanted to run by you that I found intriguing, because you and I are both, and I'll run through those again, and I'll post them in the notes. of this video, but the one that I really found intriguing that I will call an order of the cavemen to dig deeper into is red meat was one that commonly came up. And like we do here on Left Coast Caveman, we try to make things both practical and accessible, but we also kind of poke holes in the whole influencer culture of biohacking and this and that. Like, you can find data to support that you should go on an all meat diet, and then there'll be somebody selling supplements about all meat. Or you can find data that supports an all plant-based diet, and you'll find somebody selling programs and supplements around that. We try to do the middle ground thing, like it said in our intro, for our very first intro that we ever made. But that's really another name for the middle ground is we don't have any affiliations. We're just going to tell you what we're experiencing because we're seeking supreme being. We want to be more functional, better, quicker, faster, more cognitive function, more happiness, more productivity as we pursue our path. And we'll share those with you. And when it said red meat, I thought to myself, I mean, yeah, I've been doing the turmeric tea for a couple weeks now, and yeah, I've been implementing what we talked about on LCC 51 or 52, one or the other of the heavy slow reps. But all of a sudden, like over the last couple of days, my elbow pain is almost gone, and my knee pain is almost gone. And what's the one thing I haven't been eating? Red meat. And I was like pounding steak last week because we had a big cookout, right? And I just, every time we have a cookout, we just like get like 12 filet mignons. It's like a ridiculous amount of meat. So I'm eating steak for like 3-4 days. And I was experiencing quite a bit of pain, and haven't been eating any red meat. I've been eating a lot of chicken this week, or just like not even a lot, just like not really eating a lot of meat in general. And I'm looking at that thinking, oh, red meat. It was the first one that came up, and it was a common one that came up, and I thought, yeah, whatever. And I don't know, the proof's a little bit in the pudding for me, but more to read up on that.
Yeah, I mean, there could be a lot going on, right? I mean, and who knows? I mean, you're out partying, with doing these big barbecues. There could have been a lot
Not
of
partying. No partying.
No, just,
no alcohol.
Just
no, I've been strictly not on alcohol. I've been, with the exception of like one drink a few days ago, but like over the last 2 weeks, really almost no alcohol whatsoever. But and my diet's usually pretty clean.
But could it also be the fact that like the accumulation of all the rehab you've been doing over like the last few weeks, and what I mean? Like, I'm not saying you're wrong. I mean, that could be a very valid thing that's going on, but it's like, well, what else is going on? You know what I mean? That's the whole problem with diet in general. And that's why, I did a lot of research on the whole Tufts thing. That was such controversy over the last few weeks of people going, oh, chocolate covered almonds has the same fucking rating as better than a steak or whatnot. And it's like, it's because it's super complicated, right? And it's very contextual and it's very nuanced. And that whole Tufts thing, and we could talk more about it if you want. But I mean, just anytime you're trying to develop a rubric, it's difficult because it's all contextual. Like, eating a lot of meat isn't necessarily, in my opinion, from the research I've done, isn't necessarily bad as long as your background of what you're consuming is also good. So if you consume a lot of that high fatty meats on the background of a lot of processed carbohydrates and sugars, that's going to lead you to problems for certain. Whereas if you're going to eat meat on a clean background of, fruits, vegetables, and lesser so processed foods, you're going to come up with less issues. And that's just for me, proof's in the pudding. I recently had my blood work done, and I primarily eat like almost every meal I have is going to have some form of red meat. Chicken as well, fish. I do vary it up, so that could be something as well. Like maybe it's not good to always have red meat every day, every meal. I think that's a general heuristic we look at. Like, don't just do 1,000 push-ups every day. Vary it up, periodize it. I think diet's somewhat similar. You think about ancient times. There wasn't a cow available every day necessarily. Now, granted, maybe like you had cow for a week or so because that was, a recent hunt, or now it's massive, or whatever the meat might. What I'm trying to say is, like, I think variability was a high component of like ancient hunter and gatherers' life. And so it's like, well, can we emulate that? I mean, we certainly have the resources to do that. You can go to the grocery store to hunt and gather. There's all sorts of different meats that you could have. It doesn't have to be red meat every day. It could be fish, it could be chicken, it could be pork, whatever it might be. What I think is interesting is how certain religions actually try to like abstain from certain meats. So like Hinduism, for instance, I think they venerate the cow, so you don't eat that form of red meat. And then you go look at like different Muslim religions, and they don't touch pork. Now I think that's also linked. There could be some past linkages to like different diseases that you would get from like some of those vectors. Like I think like was pork had trichinosis. Well, anyways, I don't remember what it was, but there was some sort of, it was advantageous for a while to use that as a tenet to avoid that disease, right? And that was like so much so, and it's so prominent in history that it was fortified in ancient scripture, and people follow it even to this day. But I mean, once again, I mean, looking at my, and I'll share it briefly. I took a screenshot of it because once again, my diet consists mainly of steaks, hamburger, some tuna, which I'm trying to limit a little bit due to mercury concerns. Because like that standard one can is about 4 ounces, whereas like your weekly allowance of tuna is supposed to be like 3 ounces. Most people don't know that. I was pretty surprised because I was down in a can of tuna a day. So maybe that's not the best thing. I didn't notice any effects, but it might be something to kind of pull away from if that's your MO. I like tuna a lot, and it's cheap. But looking at my cholesterol, so you think about somebody that eats primarily red meat. Let's see, overall cholesterol was 191 milligrams per deciliter. And what is that? 0 to 8. So 0 to 18 years is 170 to 199. So I essentially had the cholesterol of an 18, like less than an 18-year-old. Pretty good, because I'm almost 40. Okay. So we go a little deeper into it. Triglycerides. Considering how much fat, I mean, I mostly eat fatty meat. I love fat. My value is 50 milligrams per deciliter. Okay. That's once again lesser than the 0 to 10-year-old range. The standard range is less than 499 milligrams per deciliter. I'm at 50, and I eat fat nonstop. Interesting, right? And that goes to the adage that like your dietary cholesterol isn't as necessarily influenced by diet as you think. Like eating fat doesn't make your blood fat. Okay, especially on a context like I don't eat processed I don't eat processed carbohydrates. I don't have breads. I don't have grains. Now, of course, I have beer. Okay, right? So like we all know this. Like that is probably the most consumption of processed grains, if you will, that I consume. Now, if we go a little bit deeper, once again, HDL, high density lipoproteins. Those are the good ones. Those are the scrubbers, the things that bring all that stuff back to your liver for processing. My range is 85. Now that seems high, right? Because you look at male, 18 to 150 years old, the healthy range is 40 to 59. I'm at 85. You want to have high HDL. That's a good thing. So I'm way above that range. I mean, it's that. Well, at least that's they call it the normal optimal. Okay. So, and what's interesting about that is you have to juxtapose it on your LDL. My LDL is 96. Okay. And so if we look at the range for 0 to 18-year-old, it's 110 to 129. So I'm below the LDL cholesterol of an 18-year-old. I'm almost 40. And this is from somebody that primarily, I wouldn't say I'm on a carnivore diet, but I'm pretty damn close. I would say 90% there. And so, I mean, it's interesting. Hey, get your blood work done. I mean, like for anybody out there that's wondering what they're doing, I do it once a year, and I force my doctor to do it because she didn't want to do it this year. And I said, hey, lady, like, check it out. I've got cancer in my family. I love living. Let's run this. Let's make sure I'm doing the right things. How can you expect to, how can you expect to optimize your health and living and if you can't measure anything? You have to measure it to understand, to have an objective idea. It's like you can't just say, oh, I'm eating healthy. Well, how do you know? You think you are. You'd be surprised if you start jotting down and doing a food journal. You'd be surprised you eat a lot of fucked up stuff. I myself that's why I hold myself accountable to at least once a month. I do one day where I literally use that MyPlate doc, or I forget what app it is. I log everything in to understand what's an average caloric day look like for me. They're like, keep myself honest, because if you're not measuring it, you're not measuring it. You don't. I think that's a big business technique. You always got it. You're looking at the numbers. Well, what's your strategy? Well, we hope we hope to hit 5. What are you basing that number off of? I don't know. No, you need to know like where we were before, where we're trending right now, and what the market's doing. What Nielsen data is telling us. Like it needs to be a numbers-based approach, and with your health even more so. I mean, that's your main business, is staying fucking healthy. So I recommend anybody to get your blood work done, get a panel done, super easy. If your doctor gives you any sort of shit about it, say, no, this is happening. Send that script, you go get your blood work done. It's really easy. And I find it highly useful. As well, I mean, what was really interesting is when I went to, we were also looking at my history of resting heart rate. And like years prior, I was at 85 and now I'm at 55. And that's at a hospital setting, which is going to be slightly elevated because it's called white coat syndrome. And it's like, oh, that's cool. So I'm making progress in terms of my heart beating more efficiently because the muscles are growing in my heart, specifically like the left ventricle. That's what you want. That's all positive feedback that you're doing the right thing. So, anyways, that's kind of my long spiel on that. But yeah, it's different for everyone. Some people can do really good. I mean, I love my blood work. My vitamin B levels were out of control. My creatinine levels were out of control. I mean, these are all great things to say, like, your diet is working for you. And I'm going to keep on it. But it's, once again, different for everyone. And I respect that. Some people can probably have some great results off of a plant-based diet as well. Totally, dude. Like, whatever, if you feel good. I mean, I can tell you this. I'm doing this thing right now, this whole last week where, back to purging. I decided that maybe I'm being a little bit opulent in like the amount of calories I take in because I like mouthfeel. I like eating, even if it's healthy food for lunch. So I've just been doing protein shakes for lunch. 2 scoops of protein, about 340 calories, 40 grams, 44 grams of protein, and that's it for lunch. And then I eat at 7. So essentially, I have 1 meal a day. And let me tell you, it's a little bit rough. Not in terms of, it's rough in terms of like the dopamine hit that I'm not getting any longer at midday because like that's my time. Like I get a little half hour to scarf down some delicious meat, but I want to separate that, right? Because I feel like I'm getting a little too indulgent. And what I find is after hitting that protein shake, I'm pretty damn good. Like I'm not hungry, but my workouts have slightly been suffering. I did an hour on the road bike yesterday and I was dying. Like I wanted off that fucking thing and I was doing easy work too. I felt like I had no gears. I couldn't do my Tabata. I usually do an hour of zone 2. And then I like to, at the end hit a 4-minute Tabata and then move on to my abs. I had no energy for it. And then today I did it again. I did an hour run, like a 5-mile Friday with some hill runs. And I did not like have that gear. So that's one downfall to it. But I'm going to keep going with it for a while, just from a disciplinary perspective. And also I want to see if I can get jacked, get shredded up.
Have you seen the movie Forrest Gump?
Oh yeah. Love it.
Like when he joins the football team and like he just crushes it, like just goes running through everybody and they can't catch him.
Oh yeah.
And then eventually they develop, the fans at Alabama eventually developed the where they hold up the signs that say "Stop Forrest." I need to get you one of those signs because like you just introduced so many different topics that I jotted down that we need to talk about. That it was like when you get on a tangent, I'm like, okay, yeah, that was a good point. Yeah, that was a good point. That was a good point. That was a good point. That could be a micro program. That could be follow up. That needs to be follow up. But this definitely springboards us into, like, I'd say a core fundamental left coast caveman way of life discussion around nutrition when it comes to cave implementation of nutritional modalities in general. And then the whole what to avoid section that we're talking about today. Because clearly you and I are both going to be skeptical of anything that says don't eat anything if it's a plant or meat. Unless you're talking about like, I would say even if that would include even like bacon, hot dog, sausage, processed meats, things like that. So starting there and then kind of working through a few points that you made, I would say the cave implementation of this specific nutritional modality of if there are specific things that in the left coast caveman way of life, one should absolutely avoid. You mentioned, and I agree, I don't touch processed carbs. You'll never see me eat a loaf of bread unless I'm in a desperate situation. But again, I'll get to that. Pastries and things of that nature, like added sugar, like processed white sugar, not like organic cane sugar, I will absolutely avoid. I will not eat those things. You will not see me eat those things ever unless I'm in a jam or something like that, and I can get to that. Sodas, high fructose corn syrup, absolutely not. Like I will starve before I'll put high fructose corn syrup into my body. Fried foods, canola oil, like soybean oil, these highly inflammatory oils, anything outside of really like avocado oil, olive oil, or like grass-fed butter.
Well,
Coconut oil, of course. Yeah,
Yeah.
like you will not see me put that into my body. Period. End of story. Ever. So there are some things that I would say from a cave implementation, like there are a top list of items like absolutely not to avoid or to avoid. A couple different and we'll post that here at leftcoastcaveman.com and on this in the notes of this section, but being proactive with your health and having metrics around it are important, and going and seeing your doctor is important. However, your intention with nutrition is really what matters. It's not about avoiding this or avoiding that, or I'm on a diet, or I'm on a keto, and I'm on this diet or that diet. It's like the Left Coast Caveman way of life promotes intentional eating. Sometimes it's okay to have a hot dog. If you're at a ball game and I can't eat hot dogs. It's like, no, it's an intentional thing. And then when you do get your blood work done, or if you're addressing some kind of ailments, and you talked about this on the last cast, understand that food is thy medicine. Your proof is clearly in your pudding, and I love your blood work. I shouldn't say your pudding. That's a little weird. But in one of my previous doctor that I used to see, on his wall it said, if nutrition is not right, if nutrition is right, medicine is not needed. If nutrition is wrong, the medicine doesn't work. And so often people forget about that and think that they're just not mindful of or not intentional with what they're eating. And so I would say that this brings us into intentional eating as a micro program that we should develop for Left Coast Cavemen, because all of these things are good. I mean, a beer is good. I eat carbs. I just tend to not eat processed carbs. There are a few things that I do not eat at all, and I just mentioned those. But other than that, it's kind of a wide scope. It's just intention. It's like, why are my mornings more fat forward? When do I eat a lot of fats, and why do I eat a lot of fats? And like to your point, your body can use those fats. Eating fat doesn't equate to fat in your blood. If you eat them right, if you eat them with intention for a specific purpose. For me, it's more energy and cognitive ability at the front end of my day. I'll cycle the carbs later on, but it's always homemade bread or potatoes or something that's more natural and things of that nature. So, and when you talk about the energy and listening to your body too, I mean, that's the thing. It's like the intention behind it. Excuse me. Sometimes you have to listen to your body for it. Like, that doesn't mean I never eat a Snickers bar. Like, sometimes I was in the middle of a tennis match one time and I was falling out, and what was available? A few options, and Snickers bar was one of them. I grabbed a Snickers bar and ate it, and I felt better. Who knows why that happened, why I did that crash. That's like one time in 5 years that something like that will happen. But, just to be mindful and intentional with your nutrition, and be aware of the things that a Left Coast Caveman, for implementation, caveman way of life and nutrition, there are a few things that I would say add to the never put in your body list.
Yeah, that's all that is. You don't need that. I mean, especially if you have stable blood sugar because you're generally eating well, you won't be as victimized by like those ebbs and flows of blood sugar. You've been around those people. I know you have. Though they skip a meal, they're a different person. And and who knows how much it is psychological as well as physiological. It's a mix of both. But it's like, you should be able to go like without one meal and be cool and be like at your equilibrium and be able to hold it down. I mean, humans, we have this like amazing ability to utilize your fat for fuel sourcing throughout long periods of time of famine. And I'm not saying you need to like fast all the time or multiple days in a row, but fasting every day is not a bad thing. Like, in my opinion, and a lot of the research suggested, and this was a topic we talked about way before in the rat studies and such, like, the bodies are healthier when you allow it some time to regenerate the digestive organs. Like, let it rest. It's like running your car all the time, always driving your car. It's like, allow it some time to rest, to cool down, like, don't put as much mileage on it. There's only so many miles you can put on an engine. And the same thing with like your digestive system, like your body. And with the engine, you can replace pieces. It's a little bit harder with the body. So I'm a big believer in that. And as I tinker with it, it's different for everyone, but I'm finding out what optimizes. I'm doing this right now, just the 2 shakes during the day. just to see, can I do it? One, it's a discipline thing. It's a meditation. I'm pulling away my dopamine and my joy of like my midday meal because I wanted to, it's a challenge, right? I don't need it. And I don't think it's what people have to do, but hey, I want to shed some pounds. I want to sculpt up a little bit. And I'm realizing I don't like that my relationship with food midday. So I'm changing that, and anybody can do that. Like change your relationship with food. I think as well as like you mentioned intentional. I love that. I mean, intention with anything is fucking that's king, but also have a plan, right? So like for instance, I was in meetings all day today. I was away from home, and I knew that like my meeting was at 11 o'clock, and I had another meeting at 1. I'm out in Modesto, and I'm not going to go buy food somewhere. And it's like, well, I can either not have anything or I could pack a protein shake. Super easy. Like really, it took me 3 minutes to prepare that thing for consumption at like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. You know what I mean? Like that's having a plan. That was a plan. And because of that plan, I mean, granted, even with that, I would have been fine. But I know for most folks, if you don't have a plan, you will fall victim to like poor planning and like, oh, well, there's a gas station. Let me go in there and fucking grab something real quick. Or it just, I feel like you'll fail yourself more if you don't have a plan. If it's more haphazard, that's where it gets dangerous for most folks. So have a plan. Meal prep some shit. Always have on hand some things that you like. Boiled eggs, that's an easy one. Protein shakes, super easy. I mean, the list goes. There's a lot of other ways. I mean, just meal prepping in general, having some cold cuts. Like, and when I say cold cuts, not like processed meats, like having some like night before. I mean, Saturday and Sunday, that's my meal prep time. I'll make massive amounts of hamburger patties, tri-tip, cave stew, like, and I just have this ready, and I can always pack it super easy style and eat it wherever I'm at. And I always have a plan. I mean, it's intentional and it's planned to a degree, right? Like sometimes I'll pop off and like, I'm going to have a burrito. I'm going to have a super burrito, right? No beans, no rice, everything else just nice. Boom. Too good. Keep the body weight where it needs to be, feeling good. You shouldn't feel super tired after a meal. That's a key indicator that you fucking eating the wrong things. And I remember back in the day, man, I used to be a sandwich king. I love sandwiches. I still love them. I have them every once in a while. Like maybe once or twice a year, I'll have a fucking Kinder sandwich because I love sandwiches. But I tell you what, I don't love the way it makes you feel afterwards. And most people feel that and they think it's normal. Meetings after 12, can't do it. I'm tired. I need to take a nap. It's like, no, you fucking need to not eat that stuff. That's what's robbing your performance. Unless you want to take a nap. You want to eat shitty, take a nap, and be cognitively slow going forward. If you're in a competitive environment, I mean, hey, man, I want to be sharp for my meetings. So I need to have an edge on people. And like, that's one thing that I can control. Maybe I can't control the results. Maybe I can't control the situation I'm going into, but I can control like how I'm approaching it, like how sharp my mind is. And that's something I'm putting together some content around that because I think I've really stepped into something really cool about, especially for business professionals looking to have that, or even maybe you're going into an interview, or maybe you're going to go into a tough negotiation with like your son's mom or whoever it might be. These are things like you probably want to be your best, want to be as sharp as possible. And that diet is a key component to it.
Yeah, and to use specific cave terminology, I'd say intentional eating is a specific component to it. And that was the other topic that I jotted down that you bumped into that I wanted to circle back on, was that 1 meal a day thing. And that's, again, it's your intention for it. You mentioned that you're wanting to get shredded. 1 meal a day is not my deal right now because people keep telling me, oh, dude, you look like you're skinny. And I'm like, I'm the same weight I've always been. So like I when I'm trying to build muscle, I definitely don't do the 1 meal a day. But you bring up another good topic that this thing is counting me down again. I got 4 minutes about this idea of discipline versus application and adherence and having a plan. And that's exactly why we put this content together at leftcoastcaveman.com. And our YouTube channel, Left Coast Caveman, and Twitter and all this, Left Coast CVMN on all of our social handles, because we want to provide you the tools, the nutritional modalities, fitness modalities, and mentalities for better well-being. And the difference between discipline and having a plan and application is it's easy for people to be like, oh yeah, be disciplined. It's like, to what? Well, because you eat 1 meal a day doesn't make you disciplined. It does. It has a factor of discipline to it. Or if you're eating only chicken and broccoli because you're building muscle, it doesn't make you disciplined. You're adhering to a specific modality for a specific purpose. And that's what we're trying to teach, is that everything has its intention around it. And sometimes letting go of that and eating your burrito is an application and adherence as well. I want to have a good time tonight. I don't want to be a little bitch at the party and be like, oh no, I don't do that. It's not part of my diet. It's like, no, you're part of a social environment. We've talked a lot about ecosystems and environment and your influence. And it's like, you want to, and the intentional influence and also the unintentional influences that you have. And nobody wants to be a part of something that's like excludes things or demonizes things. It's like, beer can be good. You know, especially when we'll have topics about or micro programs about alcohol and alcohol consumption as well, and these kind of things. It's like everything with an intention. Apply it. What are you accomplishing? Answer that question. Know that with your food, with your nutritional modality, your fitness modality, and your mentality. Like clear the way, and use our tools that we're providing you to get part of that plan. And if it's building muscle, maybe it looks a little bit different than if you're getting shredded, or losing weight is a little bit different. But all things with intention are welcome here at Left Coast Caveman, including, what's my thing? You know, every once in a while I'll smash on some cookies. And to your point earlier, a sandwich. Yeah, I don't eat sandwiches in the middle of the day. You'll never see me eat complex carbohydrates before 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Why? Because they make me sleep. But maybe I'll go eat a bowl of cereal at 4:30, 5 o'clock, like clean, you know, gluten-free, all that kind of stuff, like complex grains, ancient grains, amaranth, and all that kind of stuff. Why? Because it does make you sleepy. It makes you sleep better at night. But 2 minutes, man, tie us up.
Yeah, that's good, man. Well, I don't think anything more needs to be said about it. I mean, we've said it all essentially. I mean, we covered so much information tonight. I encourage people to think about what they put in their body. Really just think about it. Before your next meal, think about what you're putting in your body, and does it serve you, right? Is it allowing you the energy you need? Is it providing you with the muscle building properties? Is it giving you the energy for cognition? Are you thinking clearly after that meal? Do you feel good? Like, we all know when you're eating bullshit. Like, we know. Like, you internally, when you're eating that piece of cake, you know you're fucking up. And that's sometimes cool. It's cool to fuck up. It's cool to, I shouldn't be doing it, but I'm going to. I deserve this. I want this right now. I'm going to intentionally fuck up right now. That's fine. But like, understand those patterns. And is this something you do a little too often? And meditate on that. Is this food serving me? Is this my fuel? Is this the proper fuel? And I think that could help you make better decisions in the future. And also, if I had to sum up any sort of dietary guidance, which I should not be giving, because as a certified personal trainer, I'm not supposed to give any dietary guidance. But if I had to sum it up, just eat whole foods, literally, just whole foods. If it has a paragraph of ingredients, don't fucking eat it. Whole foods. It's real simple. And you can dial in what's best for you, what's optimized based off that. Whole foods. Eat vegetables, eat plants, eat meats. Whole foods.
It's about to kill us. It's about to get us. But
that's
yeah,
it,
brother. All things intentional. We'll see you again next week, and
outstanding.
see you then, brother.
Yeah, be healthy. Later.
All right, later.